I am so excited to introduce our audience today to Kim Tang, International Master Yoga Teacher and Head Coach of International Yoga Sports Federation, public speaker, intuitive spiritual counselor, and breathwork facilitator. Kim leads trainings, seminars, teaches, and does all of this like private sessions plus spiritual consults, retreats, worldwide e-learning. Kim, you are a busy lady, and welcome today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Lindsey. And I always start with love and gratitude. They are the highest frequencies. And so thank you to the listeners for caring to receive the content. And thank you for caring to share it with them. Yeah.
No, truly. Thank you for your time and your wisdom today. And I'm so excited to go down this path together. And I will just give you the mic in 1 second, but some of your buzzwords that popped out at me where I'm like, yes, come speak to our community. We're starting to really grasp, breath work and that importance of pause within the day and just listening to our body, those messages to our body, be intentional and why that matters. So I kept snagging different words that I saw from your bio. And I just want to flip this over to you and tell us about you and how you got to where you are today.
Thank you. Okay, my name is Kim Tang. And if I were to try to describe to you kind of like how I serve, what I do is kind of like the common question, I would tell you that my life right now looks like a Venn diagram. And for the listeners who might not know what that is, it's like two circles, the same size, side by side, except they overlap. And so there's this kind of almond shape in the middle. And on one side of the circle is all things yoga. And on the other side of the circle is all things spirit. And most people at this point are coming to know that the two are one and the same, inseparable. So that overlap in the middle is where I reside. And so yoga, spirit, YS. And it happens to turn out that we also have a small private event center for the healing arts and spiritual sciences up in the high desert, Joshua Tree area of Southern California called Yakashala. It's another Y and an S. So you'll find me there. Yeah. Thank you.
And that wasn't even intentional initially. Yes, that just came together.
Not at all. Yeah. Coincidence, but then there are no coincidences, only the incidence of two vectors coinciding. So it always makes perfect sense.
Yes. So lead us on your journey. Tell us about your clientele, what you are set out in the world to go. If I could serve this one person, if I could change this one life, tell us your path.
Mm-hmm. What I want to say, kind of specific to your audience, is that I came through this path of yoga where there were opportunities for yogis to do demonstrations on stage. And in this moment, I'm going to keep it very simple like that. And I'm going to tell you that what I couldn't help but notice is that everyone who was on stage was seemingly kind of young, tall, thin, flexible, and what they call born that way, right? Mm-hmm. So what I want to speak into with your audience is that when I took my very first yoga class at the age of 36, I was not that I don't want to say stereotype, but I was not the one that you would look at and say, oh, she's chosen, young, tall, thin, naturally flexible. But I found myself in this. I was told like never too young, never too old, never too late, never too sick to start from the scratch. That's what I want to say. Never too old, never too late, never too sick to start from the scratch. That is for you. And this is my life in service for your audience. So what I want to tell you is that was really like me. My path was really shaped by what I'm going to call daring to believe in myself in the form of this thing that I call standing on the X, which is doing demonstrations on stage of yoga postures that are strong, deep, correct. And frankly, all that we're really doing there is trying to inspire people as to what's possible and to demonstrate mastery of central nervous system, like a game of nerves. Can you do these tricky complex balancing postures when you get one chance only and people are watching you and you're shaking like a leaf, and also the way that I'm going to say the body is a learning device for the mind. So we learn a lot about the mind in a practice. And I think that that is something you and I are going to move into in this conversation. And I'm not even going to say mind as much as consciousness, but I don't want the word to be scary, because this is not like esoteric twinkling Christmas tree lights and incense. This is practical, tangible, functional. And I'm going to tell you what it means and what it looks like in what we would call an ordinary life. So I was on this path of daring to believe in myself in the form of standing on the X. And I would have these great moments of being what I'm going to call up against myself. And I would experience even things that I would have called like ageism, or someone not being able to actually see me as my full potential. And so I felt unseen, and I just kept daring to believe in myself. And sometimes I would fail and I would just pick myself up and dare to believe in myself. And then I would have success. And this path, just to digress, my logo it's a vertical stack of a symbol. And that symbol is called an unalome. And it has 4 different sections, each kind of depicting an aspect of my service. And they're connected with like these kind of swirls and spirals. And what that image actually means is that the path to enlightenment or self-realization is seldom the shortest distance from A to Z. So it has the twists and the turns. And my path was full of twists and turns.
Before you move on, I just want to highlight that for a minute. Thank you for saying that, because we often highlight the fact that we're a microwave society with quick fixes. And to your point, the twists and the turns really are part of everyone's journey. It's just, are we willing to accept them? Are we willing to be patient and sit within them to let that next phase open, that next season of life? So I hope everyone just heard you on that it's not quick, but it's worth it.
What you just said was extraordinary, because it gives me a chance to bring in, I'm going to just take notes to make sure we get it all kind of bullet point style, is that in a yoga practice, what we're doing is actually developing aspects of mind, self-control, determination, patience, faith, and the ability to concentrate. And the reason that what you said invited that in is because when your life seems to take twists and turns, and your life seems to take detours, but then there are no detours, and that is the message of the symbol of the logo, do you remain in determination, patience, faith, self-control, and the ability to concentrate, which is what I primarily espouse in that platform that I was talking about. I call it the ability to, if I've already said to you, which I have, the body is a learning device for the mind. So do you have the ability to, I call it stop, drop, and vortex, which means command exactly what you need and nothing that you don't. So the ability to concentrate, that alone can bring you into that deep state of pure time presence, which is one of the kind of words that you picked up on that you wanted to speak into. So all of it is just a big yes. So this path of twists and turns and self-control, determination, patience, faith, concentration, daring to believe in myself, even when I fall, even when I fail, daring to believe in myself, even when I succeed, and then knowing and accepting this version of me in this moment so that I can start where I'm at, do what I can, always and only with breath and with form, and to understand that the more you fall, the more you learn. And so the more you learn, the less you fall. And just that amount of self-compassion, self-control, determination, patience, faith, and concentration. These are all the elements of yoga.
This is so good. And please tell our listeners today how long and how much practicing this takes to get into that spot. Because again, getting out of fast fixes, like this is repetition of staying in that brain space, correct?
Well, so I want to answer your question very differently. So if you don't mind, when you say, how long does it take you to get to where you are? That implies that everyone wants to get to where I am. That's not even their goal. So it's almost irrelevant. And if I may, not to offend you, I want to give an answer that's like better for them. And what I want to tell you is that kind of like, I'm going to put my notes down. I'm going to scoot up. Like, this is important. I want you to hear me. So one of my huge takeaways is, and I know I'm using these words that seem, woo-woo, but hear me now, because we're going to crack the code on this thing. I'm going to call it this. And I think this is what we're going to move into in our conversation, if you like it. And that is the consciousness with which you conduct your practice is the same as the consciousness with which you conduct your life. And so learn that on the mat to use it in the life. And that is the goal. So here's the thing is in the cultivation of those 5 aspects of mind, self-control, determination, patience, faith, and the ability to concentrate, connect to calm, deep breath in pure time presence. If you get that in a yoga mat, you're the winner. And what I mean by that is when you have that consciousness, that ability that you've cultivated, you can use that consciousness, that ability to create, to be, I'm going to say, to be deliberate about the creation of your life, no matter what your dream is. So in other words, maybe your dream involves, maybe you're artistic and it involves creativity. Maybe it involves creation of a space or a building. Maybe it's academically inclined. Maybe it's socially inclined. Maybe it's inclined with nature and food. Like no matter what your vision is, if you cultivate those aspects of mind, then you can be deliberate about the creation of your vision, no matter what it is. And by the way, maybe it is a picture of what you would call your perfect picture of health. So their goal doesn't have to be my goal, but they'll get to their goal the way I got to my goal if they understand that what we're doing is learning the body, using the body as a learning device for the mind and developing those aspects of mind.
Yes. Okay. I'm loving this. And now shift this to, I'm going to take everything super simple. And I hope this doesn't annoy you today, but I'm picturing here's a common person in our community of, call it a working mom, kind of crazy life, getting the kids off to sports, thriving in the work environment. The days are long and they fall into bed at night, start it all over again. And even the idea of like finding this calmness or finding this space is kind of like, I don't even know how to get there type of thinking. Like, what is an example of how you would take what you're aiming for into this person's life?
Been there, done that. I am that. Remember, when I started this, I was 36 years old with 3 kids and a big, busy life. So what I like to say is if you reside in a musculoskeletal system in a field of gravity, I'm talking to you. And kind of like my jam and my specialty is exactly what you just said. So I'm talking to y'all, all y'all. And I want to tell you that this is the magic formula. And it requires what I'm going to call some self-compassion. And what that means is we cast aside, number one, the ego of I don't want to go into a yoga room until I'm in shape, right? People do that to themselves. So, and it also requires some self-compassion, which is first and foremost, stop being so hard on yourself, please. And second of all, my magic formula, which is what I'm going to call Start where you're at, do what you can, always and only with breath and with form. And so literally one of my bylines, and I know I'm like throwing a lot down there, but I say all levels are welcome. All that's required is the the willingness for you to allow more for yourself in your life from this starting point, right? This version of you is what I want to bring into a room. And don't compare yourself to someone else. And what I mean by that is, for example, in the scheme of an alphabet, don't look at your B and compare yourself to somebody else's X. That's like, I don't know, X, that was Y, Z. So the bottom line is you just have to be willing to take yourself in this exact version of you, get that self into a room and be willing to just start. So what I do is, no matter who it is, and I think I want to be very clear about this. Everybody looks at my path and my practice and my history, and the first thing they think is, oh, I'm not advanced enough to learn from her. And that is not the case. That is a myth and a fallacy. It's actually the opposite. So the broader range of a teacher can take the most, I'm going to call it broken, scared, stiff, calcified, maybe or maybe not with prosthetics, first timer, 70-year-old. And then that tall, thin, flexible, naturally born with it, nothing to do but yoga all day, girl in the front row. And the broader range of a teacher can teach all of them in the same room. And then they all come out and say, oh my God, I feel like you were talking just to me, right? So I teach everyone of every level. But so what I do is when they come in, because that's a common question that I get, where do you start? Well, what I do is I start where you're at. It doesn't matter where I'm at. I start where you're at. Yes. And what I do is I give you what I'm going to call a millimeter. And you'll have to really kind of, get in the zone, tune in and breathe, relax, concentrate, command. And you'll have to try to get that millimeter. But I am always setting you up for success and triumph. So if you reach for the millimeter, you're going to get it. And then when you're ready, I'm going to give you another. So I call it spoon feeding the millimeters. And in this way, and by the way, you can, and you definitely can change your entire body. It is never too old, never too late, never too sick to start. Start where you're at, do what you can, always and only with breath and with form. And all of these things that we've already called in. It's just the keys to the kingdom. It's just pure gold.
It is. I think we all need to write that down and memorize it so that we can just say it when needed. I've heard the never too old, never too late, and then the never too sick to start is a new little bit of that phrase that I'm really liking, because a lot of people discount themselves before they could ever get started. And then we have a phrase here in our community that I feel like we've kind of all adopted in this eyes on your own paper, which is what you were going into as well. Doesn't matter what the person on the next mat is doing. It doesn't matter at what level you are. Eyes on your own paper, put your horse blinders on, focus on what your needs are. And it is amazing that you can fulfill all those needs in the same yoga room. That is skillful. But promising and hopeful too for that person walking in and wanting to start something like this. It can be for you. And there are wonderful teachers out there. What do you say to the person going, I don't know where to start. And I don't know, if it wasn't with you, if it was within their community, are there watch outs on where and how to start?
Here's how I'd like to answer the question if I could. And you're also talking about something right now that after we do this, I want to kind of go back to and expand upon something that you just said, if that's all right. And so the first thing is this: there are so many types of yoga. And what frequently happens is people they kind of actually just like muster up the courage to try a yoga class, but they go into, say, a certain type of yoga, that might or might not be for them. And then they go, oh, I don't like yoga. It's like, wait a minute.
Then they scratch it off the list.
Right. You're like, wait a minute. You didn't like that type of yoga. So if I were to really talk about the starting point, I would really talk about deciding which type of class is going to support you in your needs. Let's be very clear. This yoga practice is designed to support you in your life, not the other way around. So I think the real way to start is to figure out which type of class suits you, and then start with that. And I am going to say that continuity, consistency, there it is, frequency, precision, and mastery. So let's say this: you find the right type of a class. And so you go and you like it. So you go again and you like it more and you keep going. And you're hearing the instructor say things and you're starting to understand. So you're able to integrate more into the practice, more of the cues into the practice. So that's already 2 stages, 2 of the first steps. Number 1, frequency. You find the practice that you like and you start going more often. Number 2, precision. As you start going more often, you start to understand the form and the cues and the breathing and the rhythm of the class a little bit better. And now you're going more often, you're understanding better. And so now you're actually able to experience some kind of a greater level of connection, self-realization, and precision of practice. I think that's what I want to say, precision of practice. And that would be maybe the fullest experience of the yoga, mindful movement with breath. Mindful movement with breath. Breath is the bridge between mind and the body and the connection. And I like to call it from the brain through the spine to the body. So I think that's the way I would answer that.
No, and thank you for taking a deep dive there with me, because I feel like I needed my community to hear that, because people's brains oftentimes go to what's something very tangible and around me that I could maybe just get started with, and how should I think through it? Now, the cool part about podcasting is that we get to meet the Kim Tangs of the world, and that you are virtual, that you are actually accessible to us. And so I really need you to take another deep dive now. With our listeners' minds have expanded a bit to go, or this is what I offer, and this is how I would gently lead you in to what I offer and who that would look like it would suit.
Thank you for your generosity. It'll be my privilege to speak into that. So who it will suit is the whole of humanity.
I knew you were going to say that. That's so good.
There is no question. So remember, my byline is all levels welcome. All that's required is the willingness for you to allow more for yourself in your life. And my byline is, and by the way, I love you. And so on the side of yoga, in this Venn diagram, there are many things that I do. One is, and by the way, all roads lead to kimtangyoga.com. You can find it there. So in the yoga realm, first of all, I have an entire video platform. And what's so interesting is that I've carved out this niche mastery that had been reserved for this elite group of 7,000. And now I'm availing this level of teaching, by the way, which is all level, to, I like to say, the whole of humanity, anyone who cares to learn from me. And there's a video for that. So the video, I've really barely scratched the surface, but you can learn from me with some videos that are quite affordable. I speak for 2.5 or 3 hours on educating people, and then homework videos and so on. I also do private sessions, and those are really easy to book online. And when I get to have you one-on-one, which is kind of my jam, I see you. I see you in your entirety. So I receive you. So I accept you on every level of being, because yoga is not gymnastics. And anyone can tell you, suck your stomach in and point your toes harder. And that is not what I'm here for. So I understand the relationship, whether or not you do, you don't have to worry. I do. I understand the relationship between the thoughts and beliefs, the feelings and emotions, and then the body, which is the reconciliation of it all. And so I know how to read it. I know how to read the spiritual component. I know how to read what you're up against in your life. I know how to read what I'm going to call your habitual tone, which is just the body that you walk in with. And I'm kind of a master biomechanical carpenter. And so one-on-ones are always good. That's all I'm trying to say. And then I do 3-day in-person events here at the Yakashala and by the way, yakashala.com, and you can also get to it from my website. So we do 3-day in-person events, and those events are on my calendar. I'm getting ready to load the next batch. And finally, I'm involved with some certification programs. And so if you want to be a teacher, there are ways that you can learn from me with a collaboration. This is incredible. This is a global collaboration called Yoga Sport World. And we have 4 satellite locations worldwide. So one is in Prague, one is in Australia, one is in Mexico City, and one is in Berkeley. And then I collaborate with senior international yoga instructors for a global certification, so you can travel the world and teach. And and then there are other options in the way of spirit. And just briefly, I do a lot of intuitive spiritual counsel. I do quantum healing hypnosis technique, level 2 practitioner. I do alchemy meditation and alchemy of breath. And I do, this is important. On my website, I have the podcasts and I have links to all the podcasts that I do. And there's a whole lot of them, and they're free. You can just go to my website. If you want to hear more conversations like this from all different presenters of all different backgrounds and platforms, you can just go to my website, click on the link, and listen for free. And so, how else can I serve you? You let me know.
That's so good. Again, it's from one-on-one to group to go teach it, go learn yourself. It's everything. And it's wonderful to know. And this is where I love technology. I have a love-hate relationship with technology, but love it in the sense that literally we can grab you from all around the world, which is amazing. So thank you. Thank you for that recap. And then all those websites and they'll be in the show notes. So, okay. So I definitely wanted my listeners to know that nothing is off limits. I'm going to backtrack a second because we were talking about, and I'm dumbing down everything, but you were saying how we can be present, get intentional in our body through certain movements. And I was on a call I actually was listening to a workshop through this therapist, and she was going into power stances and using some of these stances with emotional eating and becoming powerful within some of our environments in which we don't feel powerful. So I was curious if you could speak on that and some different ways that you see that, again, within your practice or through your clients and helping in their everyday lives.
I appreciate that contribution she made of power stances. I think that I would address it. I would expand upon that. No need for me to repeat power stances if I had an opportunity to even contribute more to the conversation. Is that okay?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yes, I'm asking on purpose.
The point that I want to talk about is what I'm going to call the self-perception through which you hold the power stance. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of maybe a more important one. So if you're self-perceiving, and by the way, I have this event that I call it Beloveds. I'm going to help you change your relationship to gravity as you deepen your relationship with time. And if I could speak briefly on what that means, is that we have this collective agreement of what our relationship with time starts to look like as it deepens. Do you see what I'm saying? We have more and more relationship to time, and we perceive that as being in some way diminishing, less valuable, less capable, less functioning, lower expectation, and so on and so on. So what I want to tell you is I'll give you a really brief story. I started working with, I work with all different groups, but in this one context, there's this one group that is defined as 50 plus, meaning the number of years, your age, 50 plus. And this group of women that I was coaching in the category of 50 plus, when they were going from down on the floor on their mat to standing, I would use the words, okay, now stand up. And I kept noticing that when I would say stand up, they would go down to stand up. And so, in other words, if they were sitting down in a kneel down position, they would go onto their hands and feet and kind of hand all the way into the upright position, right? And I went, like I didn't say stand down, I said stand up. So when I started checking into that, their answers were like, oh, I guess that's just what it is. I guess, it's just, I'm throwing in the towel, basically. It's just my age, and this is just where I'm at, and that's just what it looks like. And I'm a little like, no, that's something you've agreed to. And that is not true, like at all. And you don't have to agree to it. You do not have to agree to that as your norm, because if you throw in the towel, you're on the downhill. You don't have to throw in the towel. You see what I'm saying? So
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I'm pausing you for a second because I feel like, again, privy to these conversations, I understand that we're talking about aging and the diminishing, like that a lot of us feel like the older we get, that less expectation, even from, I don't care if it's career, if it's from movement, if it's from what we contribute to society. And what Kim is talking about right now is that is a mindset, and we don't have to say okay to that. Like, there is a way to believe, and please keep going, but believe that we have more ahead of us versus this diminishing return.
Yes, to get on that upward spiral, frankly, the better it gets, the better it gets. And the reason I'm saying that is because we called in like power stance, and like, go power stance, absolutely. But you understand that your power stance is not actually a position. Your power stance is as much your self-perception. So you could be in a power stance thinking, oh, I'm over the hill and this feels silly. Or you could be in a power stance saying, I am a powerful creator of my intention, right? And it doesn't matter what I'm in, what position I'm in when I make that claim for myself, right? So there are ways in which we don't even know that we've agreed to perceive ourselves as diminishing values. And I'm going to say no to diminishing values. And I love that you brought in career, profession, salary, relationship, capacity, potential, and so on. So that's really, when I say to you, I'm teaching you on every level of being, that's one of the things I'm really talking about, is the level of the mind, the level of the feelings that are always in response to the thoughts and beliefs, and then the power stance that comes with it and pulls that all together. So thank you for letting me say that. Thank you.
Yes. And that the power stance, just summarizing what you just said, once, like, you have to know all of that beforehand. So when you strike the power stance, it reminds you about where you are mentally, that you've done the work. You've gotten to the point where you can believe this. I am woman, hear me roar. I am confident. I am empowered. I am. And this stance just brings a quick realization to, yes, that's all I need to do to bring all that back right in that one moment. So
well,
keep interrupting you.
That one moment, and the next 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 one moment, until effort is no longer required in order for you to remember. Your life is the power stance. Each step is the power stance because you're connected to your value. You stand in your value, and it's not something that the stance is no longer required, right? So that's the goal. And that starts here. So, in the way that the body is the learning device for the mind, that stance is a great way to get that started. A yoga practice is a great way to get that started. But again, that's going to be on the level of self-perception. And maybe it's a little fake it till you make it, right? So you get in that position and you make an affirmation, but it's up to you to kind of like grow into and align to the affirmation, which is what I call catching up to who you have become. Something like,
and it goes back to your word willingness, because I think that if like somebody's forced into learning something like this and they literally aren't even willing to open their mind to the idea of how this can look, then it's not going to work for you. Like you do have to be willing to absorb what you can.
mm-hmm. Yeah. Can I tell you something? At this point, I don't necessarily like prepare for these talks so much at all, except that I like to understand, in this case, you. I like to understand who you are and, importantly, how you serve, which means who your listeners are. And like, what is the inspiration in this moment, this interview that I can share with your listeners? And what I love about this the most is that I don't plan, and therefore we can be so, I call it like spontaneity and specificity. We can be so organic and authentic with exactly what wants to come through for your beloveds to receive from us. And so thank you for that. Thank you for your comfort with fluidity, your comfort with just moving intuitively. And thank you for the ways that you serve.
Well, right back at you. Thank you. And truly, it makes me already feel like if it's only one person, it'll be more, that somebody's getting what they needed today. There's a reason why our conversation has flowed where it has flowed. Somebody's walking away going, a light bulb went off. I get it.
Play on repeat. Play on repeat.
Yes. Have you ever had that where something has struck a chord so much that I go back, I listen, and I take a note, and then I like rewind, take another note. And then it's funny because I can go back years later and it doesn't resonate the same. I'm like, I mean, it's good, but we're in the moment. I couldn't absorb it fast enough. So that's the spontaneity part, is that we get to deliver something that, yes, an individual needed to hear today.
Just realizing that I didn't mention, but in my years of what I've come to call creation, there are many realizations that I've received that I've created in the form of what I call the Tang Wisdom Deck, which is actually available on my website. So I slipped my mind. But if people are on my website and they want to remember kind of all of these kind of wisdoms that I've been in realization of, there's a wisdom deck for that. And that's on kimtangyoga.com.
Yes. So what I'm thinking, Kim, I feel like this was amazing. And also kind of this like 101, let it sink in and absorb it. And then I would love to bring you back once our listeners have gotten this first level, had a chance to check out other items that you offer, and then bring you back on. And
yes.
I hate to wrap up. This is always that point where I'm like, I could talk to you all day. But can you send our listeners out with, if you could wrap your arms around them, if they heard nothing more than this one thing from you today, what would that look like? Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
These are my words, and this is the way that I serve.
Okay.
It's going to be a little woo-woo-y. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, do it. Yes.
Okay, so maybe your listeners lean in on this one. So I'm looking directly into your eyes in this moment. And I am going to tell you, Lindsey, when I see you as love. Mm-hmm. And when you see me seeing you as love. Mm-hmm. And when you see me seeing you as love, you can see me as love. And when you see me as love and you see me seeing you as love, you can see yourself as love. So this is about service to all of humanity. It's not about yoga postures, but those postures are a tool we use to get there and the indication that we have. So that would be my closing statement.
So good. Thank you so much, Kim. I cannot tell you thank you enough for joining us today, and you will be back.
Yes, please, and thank you.